This is the moment when Syria's President Bashar al-Assad was overthrown. Russia, one of Syria's biggest allies, is now at risk of losing its military bases there. But why does this matter for Africa?
So the impact of Russia losing its bases in Syria will be quite devastating for the Africa Corps that is present in Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, as well as the Wagner Group that is in the Central African Republic and in Libya.
Moscow has two major military bases in Syria, which it uses to support its operations in Africa. To keep them, Russia will need to strike a deal with the rebel groups that overthrew Bashar al-Assad, whom the Kremlin considers an ally. So what happens if Russia loses its bases in Syria? Russian-led forces are active in Africa under the names of Afrika Korps and Wagner. They arrive to the continent from Syria through Libya. They offer military support to a number of countries in the Sahel region, fighting armed rebel groups. If Russia loses control of its Syrian bases, its operations in Africa are at risk.
We haven't seen the Al-Qaeda group in Mali celebrating the events in Syria and looking at it as a potential inroad for further undermining cooperation between Russia and Mali. Burkina Faso and Niger may also have to wait much longer for additional deployments of paramilitaries. They did push out Western forces and they were waiting for Russian support to be increased. Those two countries are potentially at risk. They will need to start training local forces or looking for other ways of building resilience.
The Kremlin could look elsewhere to base its operations in Africa. For example, Sudan.
Sudan seems to be open to allowing Russia to have a naval base in Port Sudan. But two things they need to deal with is massive levels of insurgencies, which means that infrastructure is too poor to enable a reach from Port Sudan all the way to Mali, and also political instability.
But there's another, more likely option.
Libya is logistically closer to the Sahel. Russia already has a heavy military presence, nearly 2,000 personnel by the end of 2024. They extended the airport to enable these operations. But then Libya is politically divided and Russia has not been able to influence the political divisions there.
Satellite images show that Russia has begun pulling warships and planes from its military bases in Syria. In the meantime, Moscow has been in touch with rebels, trying to make a deal that will allow it to stay. If it fails, people in Burkina Faso, Mali and other countries whose governments rely on Moscow for military support could become more vulnerable to the attacks of rebel groups.